Hey guys, it's Coach Caglione here. This is another edition of our Powerlifting for the People podcast. This is our nutrition and lifestyle pillars series. Today we're talking about sleep. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today also can kind of a little bit go hand in hand with stress management, but there might be some overlap there, but I wanted to specifically talk about sleep first because I think it kind of builds right into our final pillar of stress management really nicely. So we talked about a lot of training methods, we talked about nutrition and hydration, and sleep is going to be a really, really critical factor, and it's probably the most overlooked thing. The first thing I'll say is that your training, when you train, when you eat, and when you hydrate, is also going to affect when you sleep as well. So if possible, you want to try to hydrate, have your nutrition, and have your really intense training a little bit further away from when you start to go to bed and wind down. Because obviously, one of the goals of sleeping, and we'll touch on this a little bit more when we get into the stress management, is we want to get in a more parasympathetic state, your kind of rest and digest state. So in order for that to happen, we want to try to eliminate and kind of get a lot of our stressful or sympathetic activities kind of done earlier in the day if possible. There are some people, and we do it here too, that have to train a little bit later at night just because that's how their schedule is. But in general, one thing that I like to do personally is now I switched from, since I've been in business now for several years, and I'm not, for those that don't know, I've been competing in powerlifting for 13 years, training and coaching for 13 years, been in business for 8, and during that time I was also a teacher for 6 years as well. So like when I was teaching, I had to train at night, and my sleep was not always the best. Now I'm training a little bit more in the morning, and it allows me to definitely get to bed a little bit easier when I go at night. So especially if you're, so one of the things that's kind of really simple is making sure you're kind of like, make sure you're kind of cutting off your caffeine around midday. This is going to be a little bit different for everyone because obviously everyone's schedule is different, but for me, like my personal rule is unless I have some sort of important contest, maybe I'm coaching at the XPC finals at the Arnold, a couple of years ago, like at USA Pill Nationals, for example, I had athletes like every single day. So there are going to be some certain circumstances, maybe have like some sort of important speech I have to give or a seminar I'm kind of presenting at. There might be some times where I have a little bit more caffeine than normal just because I want to make sure my energy level is a little bit more regulated and throughout the day. Or if I have a contest myself, I might have multiple doses of a smaller amount of caffeine throughout the day. But regulating your caffeine intake is going to be a big one, especially if you're someone that really relies on coffee throughout the day. So making sure that you're using an appropriate level of caffeine and not kind of relying on that all the time for your energy. So that's number one. I think that's a big one for a lot of people because I think this day and age, especially if you're like an East Coast guy like myself or an East Coast gal, we tend to be like kind of on the go all the time, and we're constantly kind of just trying to run on caffeine and run on quote unquote fumes. So regulating your caffeine intake is going to be big. So that's number one. One of the things I think it's important to talk about as weightlifters as well, if you have a bigger neck, if you're a bigger guy, if you're a little bit more overweight, even if you're not overweight, if you tend to snore or if you have a partner that you live with and they say that you kind of are maybe choking in your sleep, that sort of thing, I think it's really important to get a sleep study and or just get a CPAP machine. That was a game changer for me, especially when I was 340 pounds. Right now I'm 237 this morning. But especially when I was 340, I just felt like no matter how much sleep I was getting, I was just always tired in the morning because I was just constantly, basically like my breathing was stopping during my sleep, and I wasn't getting quality sleep. So even though I might have been in my bed for 8 hours or 9 hours a night, I was not getting that quality, restful sleep that we're looking for. And I will just say, as with all our podcasts, this is mostly anecdote. This is not my expertise, but it's something I've been kind of learning more and more about. There are other sleep experts that are more qualified than me, but I do want to share some anecdote and what has kind of worked well for myself and the clients that we've worked with over the years. So CPAP was a big thing for me, especially if you're a lifter, if you're involved in powerlifting, if you're a bigger guy or a bigger gal, and you tend to snore at night. I think the CPAP is there's going to be a learning curve, and one of the things that is worth mentioning is also how you sleep. So I used to sleep on my belly, which is not really great for your lower back and your neck and things like that. Now I sleep on my back, and that was a little bit of a learning curve. I have a special pillow for my neck. I have several pillows. I have a pillow under my ankles. I have a pillow under my knees. to put my lower back in a more neutral alignment. So I'm very comfortable. I have some pillows for my arms. There's kind of a meme out there, if you like use more than like 2 pillows or something, you're a psychopath. So I'm definitely a psychopath. I think I use sometimes upwards of like 5 or more pillows. But use the amount of pillows that you need to get comfortable. I think that's really important. I think that sometimes the pillows and how we sleep is overlooked. Definitely make sure the pillow is not too big or too small, so you're really supporting your neck. Especially again, if you're a bigger guy, supporting your neck is going to be crucial. Supporting your legs is going to be crucial to put your lower back in a comfortable position. You don't want to be, my lower back health, even though I'm still pushing weights, I'm still, squatting 800 pounds in powerlifting gear. My lower back has felt really good, considering. So my core is getting stronger. I'm putting my back in better positions throughout the day, and definitely when I sleep. So that's going to be really key. If you are someone who tends to sleep on their side, having a pillow like in between your knees can be helpful as well to give you a good alignment there, and making sure your neck is supported as well. For me, the CPAP just tends to work better on my back, and so that's kind of why I tend to sleep on my back. So how long do you sleep? So I'm doing some more research and learning from some different people. I know like the recommendation is always like that 8-hour number, but typically, so what I've learned is to get a full sleep cycle is about 90 minutes or about an hour and a half. So in order to kind of, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, I know I have myself, sometimes you can kind of wake up and get a lot of sleep, but you kind of feel like groggy. So maybe like you slept for like 13 hours or something like that, or you slept for 6 hours, and you kind of wake up feeling groggy, even though you may have got a good amount of sleep relative to what you normally do. And I think that is because sometimes we kind of wake up in the middle of the cycle. That being said, I think that error on the side of trying to get a little bit more is probably a good idea, especially if we're trying to train our body to get a little bit more sleep, or we have a contest coming up, we're putting a little bit more of a premium on recovery. I think it's important to try to get like full sleep cycles in. So for me personally, I run a business, even though it's small. I run a business. It's a stressful time in my life right now, just with outside kind of things going on in my personal life and other things. So for me, I'm trying to always get 9 hours a night, which may seem like a lot for people, but for me, like that's going to be important, because I know if I'm more well rested, I'm going to have better workouts. I'm going to do a better job coaching. I'm going to do a better job in my everyday life, and just be a better person in general, better to be around. That might not be possible for other people. So what I would recommend is, if let's say, and some people just do better, they may do fine having less sleep, or it just may not be feasible depending on what their schedule is or their commute and things like that. So I would recommend in general, for most people, you're probably going to pick somewhere, either you're going to do 5 hours a night, you're going to do 7.5 hours a night, or you're going to do 9 hours a night. Now, there might be some extreme cases where maybe you do 10.5 for like a really elite athlete. So maybe if I was, someone like a Hafthor Bjornsson or something like that, who's like at the top of his game, maybe they're going to be even doing more than 9. But I'd say for the average person, it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 9 hours. And you're going to, that's going to be like kind of, those are all kind of like, so you're going to do, 3, 4, or 5 sleep cycles, for example. So, that old adage of a kind of 8 hours may not necessarily hold true. It's just you might, but that being said, let's say you're trying to progress to 9 hours. Maybe you start to slowly, you just do like half-hour increments at a time, like while you're building to that nice round sleep cycle number. Maybe you're only getting 5 hours right now, and you kind of want to build at 7.5. So maybe you're doing 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, and eventually 7.5 over the course of time. So don't just go like kind of cold turkey and try to get to the next cycle number. It's okay to kind of build that up over time, even though you're kind of in between. You need to experiment. The other thing that I always consider too is like kind of how long it takes for you to actually go to sleep. So I kind of build that into my schedule. So one thing I want to share with you guys. So on my iPhone, and we'll talk about electronics in a second as well, I actually have, and this is something I got from Mark Bell, give credit where credit is due. So I have an alarm to go to bed. So my alarm will go off around 9:15 at night. And that kind of just tells me to wind down, start for bed. So basically what I try to do, I try to just make sure that I am in bed before 10. That way, from 10 to 7 a.m., I'm actually sleeping. A lot of times, sometimes I'll get to bed a little bit before, so I might, actually maybe I fall asleep at 9:30, 9:45, and I might get up a little bit before 7. But in general, I'm trying to sleep from 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and that's going to be my 9 hours so I'm having my nice even sleep cycle. But I think it's important we have an alarm to go to bed. So once my kind of alarm goes off, and everyone's going to have a different amount of time they need to go to bed, the electronics start to turn off, start to kind of get off the screens, the Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. If you are somebody that likes to kind of watch a little Netflix or TV before bed, I do recommend using blue light glasses. It sounds really corny and it sounds silly, but it really makes a big difference. And basically what the blue light glasses do, it kind of refracts the light in such a way that it doesn't, your body allows you to kind of start to still get into that parasympathetic state. When we don't have the blue light glasses on, a lot of these lights from our phone, from our computer, from the TV, we kind of still think that our bodies kind of still think it's daytime out. So that's why a lot of times we're wired at night. So we're constantly getting stimulation, and we're not going to actually start to wind down for bed. Obviously, some people have a habit of maybe reading a little bit before bed, or meditating, or doing box breathing, or some sort of yoga. So anything that you can kind of do to down-regulate is going to be great. Everyone's routine is going to be a little bit different, but I think adding the blue light glasses in a couple of hours before bed is great, or especially at least the hour before bed. That's excellent. And sometimes I get made fun of. I think they're quite stylish, but you can get these on Amazon. We don't get any kind of type of kickbacks or anything from them, so I think Swannies is the brand I use at Swanwick. So the blue light glasses was definitely very helpful. Some people, might do like a CBD oil or things like that. I'm kind of still on the fence with some of those things, but again, some of that stuff is worth trying if it's helpful for you. But I do think turning the electronics off at a certain time, so having an alarm to go to bed, and turning the electronics off, getting the lights out, making sure your room is dark and cool is going to be key. Okay. Other things that are going to be really important. So in order to really get the most out of making sure the room is dark, I recommend even if you're wearing a sleep mask or sleep apnea machine or not, use some sort of eye mask. Especially if you work weird hours, or you don't typically get up when the sun comes up, or maybe you are somebody that works a night shift or things like that. The eye mask is going to be key to really make sure that you're blocking out any type of light. If you're like myself, live Long Island, there's going to be a lot of street lights, there's other lights, so even if it's never going to really be completely pitch black. So the eye mask is key to make sure that your body thinks it's dark, and it's going to start to relax. And it kind of gets you into a routine. Once the eye mask goes on, you kind of know it's kind of time for bed. So part of just being in this routine is helpful, and then the other part is a little bit more kind of biological. So both kind of go hand in hand. So the eye mask is key. And we talked about it being cool, so making sure if you live in a hot environment, having some sort of air conditioning or a fan can be very effective as well. Make sure you're not doing anything strenuous before bed. Other thing that I've been experimenting with a lot, again, learned this from Mark Bell, but there's a lot of research that kind of shows, and from, again, what I've learned, is that basically when you open your mouth, you get more sympathetic. So when we want to get parasympathetic, we want to get into a rest and digest mode, or especially the rest mode. We want to breathe through our nose. We want to use nasal breathing only. So it's really important to do that. So one of the things that I've been doing, and I definitely find helps quite a bit, is using a mouth tape, and you can get, again, some of these from Amazon. I think Somatex is the company, but we could check it out and put a link in the description. So using some sort of mouth tape can also be very effective to make sure that you're breathing through your nose. Being more aware of using nasal breathing and just nasal breathing throughout the day I think just practicing in general. The more you can kind of nasal breathe, the more you're going to be in that relaxed state. But especially bedtime, especially when you're starting to get ready for bed, if you want to even put the mouth tape on, like kind of early on, like once you're kind of done eating and things like that, you brush your teeth and things like that, you floss and do all those good things. You could maybe put the blue light glasses on, put the mouth tape on, and you could have that kind of ready to go. So the mouth tape's going to just allow you to kind of force your body to learn how to use nasal breathing and get you in a more parasympathetic or a more relaxed resting state. So that's going to be really important as well. So the last thing I want to touch on is naps. So you could do like a 20, a 30, 60, or if you want to do a full sleep cycle, you could do a 90-minute nap. If you're really messed up, I suppose you could do a 3-hour as well, and that would give you 2 full cycles. But in general, if you do have some time, not everyone does, if you do have some time to kind of get a little quick nap in throughout the day, For someone like myself, I usually do some kind of a split shift work. I'll do some work in the morning, some work in the evening. So I really try to at least get like a 20 or 30 minute in. If I can fit a little bit longer, if I have a really stressful day, if I had a really intense workout, I'll try to get a little bit longer in. But getting that quick little nap in could also help reset and just provide a little bit more recovery and allow your body to kind of reset and start the recovery process that much sooner. So naps can also be effective. Again, it's one of those things where you want to time it correctly, and you want to also make sure that you're finding a time that works for you, that allows you to give you more energy and not feel too groggy when you kind of wake up from your nap, so you can be productive the rest of your day. I know, especially if you kind of train midday or early morning, eating, and I think there's something to be about like training and then like eating and then kind of taking a nap like after you train, because again, it starts that recovery process that much sooner. Which again, I know it's not practical for everybody, but it's worth mentioning to kind of kickstart that recovery process. So, want to recap a couple of big things. Try to get on some sort of sleep cycle where you're either doing 5, 7.5, or 9. Kind of build to one of those numbers. See what works for you. See what makes you feel the best. See what's sustainable and what's going to allow you to be consistent over time. I think for most people, that 7.5 number is probably the most realistic. If you're an elite athlete, the 9 is a great number. If you have really big strength goals, it's a good number. If you're somebody that's just like has a crazy job and is a little bit more of a high performer as far as their career, then maybe 5 is the right number for you. But you have to kind of figure that out. If you can get a nap in, great. If you're a big guy, get a sleep study, get a CPAP, have an alarm to go to bed, turn your electronics off, get your blue light glasses, get your mouth tape, get your eye mask, and that's going to really optimize your sleep. This is probably the biggest one that people miss. So if you can kind of really dial in your sleep, your gains are going to kind of go through the roof. Your recovery is going to go through the roof. You're going to feel a lot better. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be a better person to be around. So make sure you optimize your sleep. I hope this podcast helped you guys. I'm going to check out the links. If you want to support our program, please give us a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. If someone's really struggling sleeping, share this podcast with them, and hopefully it helps them out. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.